G'day, Ben from K-On here, showing you through our rear storage solution for the MU-X RJ models. So as you can see, we've got our usual shelf in the back, as well as our side support panels for the shelf and the light cargo barrier. Now, these two products can work independently or together, depending on your unique needs and setup. So starting off with the cargo barrier itself, the cargo barrier is a great way of keeping all your items in the boot on those trips, stops them falling forward into the cabin area. Also helps keep your furry friends back here. It's very easy to install, and more importantly, it's easy to uninstall. So say you've got a bigger item in the boot and you need to fold your seats down, just attaches to the rear headrests. You can pop those out and fold everything flat. Also moves with the seats, so as you recline your seats back, the bracket will move with them. It's a great product to keep everything nice and organized. Next up, we've got the shelf. So the shelf's a great item for storing all your small, lightweight, soft sort of things. Keeps them up off the floor and out of your way, while maintaining good visibility out of the back window. We rate the shelves to 10 kilos, which is a surprising amount when you actually start putting stuff up there. Great for all those everyday items you don't want on the floor. So the MU-X poses a unique challenge in that it hasn't got grab handles in the boot, which we usually mount most of our shelves to. Because of that, we've had to get creative, and we've gone for this bracket that comes back here to the seatbelt bolt, as well as these support side panels going down to the cup holder and the factory cargo cover bolt. They allow us to have this shelf be very, very strong without the grab handles, as well as they serve as a mounting surface themselves for pods or panel pouches or whatever other accessories you might want to bolt to them. All right, now before we get too far into it, you just want to consider sort of an order of operations. So I like to start with the barrier first while it's nice and easy to get to, before moving on to the shelf and mollies. So consider before you put all of that on, whether you've got a storage pod that you'd like to mount to your molly mesh, or maybe you've got one of our panel pouches to mount. You can do all of that while it's in the car, but it's much easier to do it with it off. All right, so we'll start off with the barrier on the MU-X. It's quite simple to put in. All it involves is taking out both of the side headrests. So you lift it up, press the little button on the side. There's two of these brackets that you'll need. You want to take your headrest set fully out of the car, and then take this bracket here and slide it on. The side with the double fold goes towards the bottom. So simply feed him through. You might have to manipulate it a little bit to get it in there. Push it through like so. Pop him back in his factory holes and press it down. And that's you done. And repeat that on both sides. And it's just as simple as there's 4 bolts, 2 on each side. So I like to pass the bolt through to get started. Line him up. Get it somewhat started. And get another one in over here. All right. We've got all 4 bolts in. Now it's just a matter of coming through and tightening them all up, and then adjusting your seats to be the right reclination, and you're done. And that's cargo barrier done. All right, so the first step to getting everything installed is to prep the car. And basically what we want to do is we want to take off this little trim here, and there's a screw behind there that we want to take out. We want to take off this trim surround here and loosen the bolt that's inside there. Now the bolt that's inside here, it is done up very tight, so have a breaker bar on hand and just be prepared for a bit of a struggle. All right, so first step, we want to get this little plug in here out. Now I've already come through and popped him off with my trim tool, but it's held in place by a little barb in the trim. It's hard to get the camera in there, but what you want to do is get a set of needle nose pliers, hold it as close to the base as you can, and rotate it 90 degrees and pull it out. All right, so this is that plug outside of the car, so you can sort of see that barb shape that I was talking about. What you want to do is get your pliers as close to the base here as possible and rotate it, and then rotate it again. So it might take a little bit of encouragement, but it can be taken out. Now, so with that little plug out of the way, we'll just come through and unscrew the screw down in this little hole and pull that guy out. All right, next up, we'll take this little trim surrounding the seatbelt out. So I like to pull the seatbelt out of the way, come in here with a trim tool and pop him off. All right, sort of work your way around. There we go, and out he comes. Now pull that guy out of the way for the minute. So with this trim off, it'll expose this bolt that's up here. It's a 14mm socket, and it is on there quite tight. So I've got myself a breaker bar. Being in the back here with the drawers doesn't make this much easier, but we'll give it a good crack. Get him on there. Oh, that wasn't too bad. We've cracked this guy loose with the breaker bar. Now we're just going to come in and take it the whole way out. Get him on there. And just wiggle him out of the road. All right, so with this guy out of the way, you want to take the zigzag kind of shaped bracket. Now there are lefts and rights of this one. It should be pretty obvious. This one here's the wrong side. If he goes in and he sticks way over there, that's not right. So you want this fold to sit nice and close. So he comes in that way, feed him in and rotate him as you go, line him up with that hole, and it should sit quite nicely like so. Now with that there, take this guy back up. So once he's fed through, just get that bolt back in place. It can be a little bit hard to see if everything's lined up behind there, but you should be able to feel your way through it. All right, he's going now. So just get a few threads in there for now. We want to leave it loose, so we've got a bit of room to play with, and we'll tighten that up at the end. So you'll notice on these lower guys, there's these two nutserts on the back. You want to take one of the supplied M6 bolts with a washer and just loosely start it on there, just enough to get it held in place by a couple threads. The reason we do this is later on, this bracket here has these two open slots on the back. Once it's in the car, they'll come through and sit like so. All right, so before we go and put everything in the car, you just want to consider what accessories you want to mount to your panels and where. So things like your storage pods or your Velcro pouches. We've gone ahead and put one of our Velcro panel pouches up the top here. On the bottom, we intend to put one of these storage pods there, but something to consider is access to this bolt hole. So these two panels sort of sit like that in the car, and you need to go through the panel to access that hole there. You could put this on now, but it's going to make your life a hell of a lot more difficult. So I recommend getting everything in the car and then attaching this. Sometimes it's just a bit of trial and error of, you know, making a start, seeing if you've got the access and changing on the fly. Ask me how I know, but we'll get them all on and we'll get started. Now that we've got our panels assembled, the next step is to get them fitted to the car. Now there is a bit of a trick to this, and it's all sort of about the angle of approach. But what we want to do is with the panel upside down like so that the washers are hanging down, take your top panel and slide him on. Try not to let it fall out of place. Rotate it back around and slide the bottom section into your cup holder. And then you want to take this little tab that sticks out and try and feed him in to where the factory cargo cover mounts. You may need to move this top guy out of the road, and then it should roughly hold itself in place from there. Now, I've just got to move this boot liner out of the way quickly on this car. There's a little screw up inside there that we want to get to. It can be a bit fiddly. If you're struggling with it, just take a minute, approach it from a different angle. I find, as you can probably tell, getting into the car is best, so you can get a nice, good, straight shot on it. I also like to just get him in there by hand most of the way so I can feel what I'm doing a little bit better. And then I come through with the screwdriver and a nice long extension, feeding it through the mesh. And then, there he goes. So just loosely get him going. You don't need to tighten him up all the way just yet. And then that's got that guy in place. Now that everything in the vehicle's prepared, we want to go through and prepare the shelf. It's pretty simple. We just want to take this little fence that stops everything flying forward, and there'll be 4 holes along the bottom here. You want to take the M5 bolts that come in the kit, line them up in the holes. I like to get 2 in there just to sort of roughly hold it in place, and then come through with your nuts underneath. Tighten them up. All right, and it's as easy as that. Just these 4 bolts at the back. Now we can take it over the car and get it installed. All right, so we've got our shelf assembled. We're in the back of the car. You'll notice there's these 2 little flaps on either side of the mollies there. So take your shelf and just feed him up like so. Don't let go entirely. Just, there we go. Let it rest like that. And now we can go through and get all our bolts in. All right, so the next step is to get these bolts connecting all 3 brackets through. So like I said, there's 3 brackets. There's this guy here, the molly itself, and the shelf. So what we want to do is line up and make sure the hole goes through all 3 brackets. I find it a little easier to come in from the back door here with the seats folded down. We can get that one started. That next one through. And then that 3rd one. And then I'll go through and stick a nut on the inside of there. If I can see what I'm doing. We want to repeat the same thing for the holes towards the back of the car. And repeat on the other side. So now that every bolt is in and loosely started, we want to go through and tighten everything up. The way I like to do it is sort of work from the bottom up. So I'll start with these screws going into the factory cargo cover. Then I'll do these bolts, then these top bolts, and then end with the big ones at the seat belt there. So, much like before, feed this guy through, get him on there. Now this guy is just a screw into plastic, so no need to go too crazy with it. Now don't forget about these 2 bolt holes behind here. If you've got a swiveling ratchet spanner, you're set, but if not, you just want to get in there with your ring spanner and do it the old-fashioned way. They are a little tricky to get to. It might take you a little while. I'm going to crawl in for this step. I've found it's easier to actually stick the whole spanner through the molly mesh and just sort of work it from the outside like that. What you want to do, I've got these almost to the end. You want to make sure you're applying a bit of downward pressure on this bottom panel when you tighten them up that last little bit. Just to make sure that all the load is transferred nicely through and that this has a bit of preload on it. It's rock solid there. It's going nowhere. All right, so next step is to tighten the 2 holding the shelf to the side panels. Again, it's a bit of a contortion act trying to get in here, but I like to get that guy on the outside there, this guy on there. And now the last bolt we want to get is this final seatbelt bolt. So just come through and get him most of the way home. Now you notice it's wanting to pull up on the roof lining here. So I'm just going to back it off a little bit. Try and reposition this guy. Pry him down a little bit. And then have another crack at him. Now, you want to do this one up pretty tight. All right, and now that we've got all our bolts tight, last but not least, is to stick this little trim piece back in. And that's it done. And that's our shelf, side supports, and barrier for the MU-X RJ series. For more info, head to the website, kaon.com.au.